Hey everyone, my name is Erik Trautman. I'm the founder of the Viking Code School, and this is an information session about the programs that we have to offer. Basically, this is designed to be as interactive as you'd like it. I know that there are some folks viewing out there, and there are a number of you who will probably see it again on YouTube later. Basically, the way that this works is you can submit questions anytime you'd like. I'll give a brief overview of what we do at Viking and the programs that we have. And then basically, I'm hoping that everything can be question driven. And if there are no questions, we'll kind of we'll talk about options that you can do to reach out or connect with us later. So basically, right now, obviously, we're live on air, and there's a Q&A app attached to this. So if you are a viewer of this on the web, you can use the Q&A app at the top of your screen to drop a question. In the Google event, you can also submit your questions directly, and I'll be able to see them there, and I can respond to those in kind. So basically, overall, the Viking Code School is basically designed to take talented beginners and make them job ready as software engineers. Basically the bar that we target is to make you employable as an engineer at a Silicon Valley tech firm, and so that means not being able to build a project on your own, not being able to freelance, but being able to get employed and paid to continue learning at a very high level in a Silicon Valley firm, or something of a comparable level of rigor and difficulty. So that means that we cover a lot of material. So we have two programs. One of the programs is our flagship Immersive Program. That's a tuition deferred program or a fee deferred program, and it's also available on a fixed fee basis. But that's the one that we originally started with, and that's a fixed cohort program where students go through in a 16-week program with a cohort of other students. There's usually roughly about 20 students in each cohort, so it's much smaller than you typically get from a boot camp in person. Even though we're online, basically what we try to focus on is the quality of the individual student experience, and that size and that intimacy really is a big part of it. So that's a program that occurs over the course of 16 weeks. There's a fairly substantial prep period leading up to it. And then after the program ends, if you're on the deferred fee plan, essentially the cost of the program is determined as a percentage of your first year's salary once you've completed the program. So the only upfront cost is a deposit for the program, and it's not a full tuition. So that's basically designed to make the program as accessible as possible to anyone out there who's interested in taking it. And at this point, to sort of provide a caveat to that, at this point it's only available to those who are basically have an unrestricted right to work in the United States and who are willing to relocate to a tech city if you do get a job in one of those cities. It's something that we'd love to be able to expand. There are a whole number of different concerns that are sort of slowing us down as we try to do that. But the other side of things is that we actually now offer on a beta level, we have a flex program available too, and that program is basically designed because we had a lot of people come to us and say, hey, this seems like a great program, but I can't actually take the time off of work, or I don't want to take the time off of work. Maybe I don't want to become a full-on engineer. Maybe I'd like to just really learn this stuff on the side. And for whatever reason, it's not a good fit to jump in the immersive program, which essentially requires you to put everything else on hold, because you'll be working over 80 hours a week during the course of the program. And so we created the Flex program as a go at your own pace alternative to that, where it's available on a month-to-month basis. So it's a monthly fee. And that's a program where you're able to opt into whatever level of support you want. So we have 3 tiers of support right now. We have a basic level where you're able to work with our community forums, you're able to work with our direct chat, and you're able to attend instructor office hours, which are live video office hours where it's sort of first come, first serve. You can ask whatever you want. You can bring in code. You can treat it like a one-on-one sessions. Oftentimes they are one-on-one sessions. And that's available to anyone who's taking any of our Flex programs. And then we also have 2 additional tiers where if you want to work one-on-one with a mentor, we put you in touch with a professional developer. These are developers who work full-time, and then they mentor typically on the side. And so they can combine that sort of that in-the-fire real-world experience with being able to teach you, and from your perspective, you're able to work with instructors of the program through things like office hours and chat and questions, but then you're also able to get the perspective of people who are working as developers, so you can start to see behind the curtain, and you can verify that the code that you're producing is actually going to be up to best practices and things like that. And so we offer once a week or 3 times a week mentor sessions through those additional programs. But in the end of the day, both of the programs are just 2 different ways of taking the same course, the same curriculum. And that curriculum is designed to, like I said, take you from 0 to job ready. And basically the gist of it is that we want to be able to make you employable as either a backend or a front-end developer, and which of course includes full stack. And so that doesn't mean you just know a little bit of Rails and a smattering of JavaScript, so you can call yourself full stack. What it means is that we want you to be able to go out there and go to a front-end position and get a job as a JavaScript developer. And we have alumni who are working in Angular jobs or React jobs. And we also have people who are working in Rails jobs, and people who are working in Python jobs, and people who are working in C# jobs. So in the end of the day, the skill set is designed to be highly transferable across a number of different stacks and areas of the stack. And because of that, that's why we spend so much time on the material, and why this program is longer than just about every other bootcamp out there, why it's a 16-week program on the immersive side, and of course covers a comparable amount of material. And so what that material is we basically we spend a lot of time really focusing on fundamentals and the concepts. It's not designed to be a one-size-fits-all program. It's designed to be challenging, and it's designed to support you well. So basically we kind of offer the two sides of that, which is we promise to challenge you and we promise to support you. And on the challenge side, we're going to teach you a lot in a very short period of time, or we're just going to teach you a lot depending on which format of the program you end up taking. But basically our stack is we use Ruby on Rails in the back end, and we use JavaScript and AngularJS currently on the front end. And that's something that's always evolving over time depending on where the jobs are basically. But the way that the curriculum works is you start out with a prep work, and the prep work is actually publicly available. And so one of our core philosophies is that context matters. And so instead of just showing you how do you code this, copy and paste code over here, and do this in this particular situation, so you graduate with a recipe of things that you know how to do, but you can't really sort of step outside. What we want to do is we want to really give you an understanding of what is your role within an engineering organization. What does it mean to be an engineer, not just to be a developer who writes code? And there's a big difference between the two. And actually, just in our prep work, I think you'll experience that. You can go to vikingcodeschool.com/prep, and you can see that. And basically, that should easily allow you to see that we have a wide degree of context. And part of that is asking questions around design, user experience, designing interfaces, things like information hierarchies. We also cover the real nuts and bolts and basics of being a developer. What does it mean to actually be a developer? How's that different than being a designer or whatever it is? So kind of like debugging kind of some of the so-called dumb questions that every single beginner goes through. And then also taking you into things like the formal engineering approaches to solving problems. Like, what does it mean to be an engineer? Just about everyone out there hasn't had an engineering education. You haven't gone in and had some teacher say that that this is how engineers solve problems. By not going through that step, you might feel like you're missing something. Our goal is to fill that in and show you that this is how engineering thinking works, and this is how you apply it to computer science, and this is how you apply it to software engineering. And so that's part of it. And then also getting a context for the process of engineering. What does it mean to be on a team? What does it mean to be in a product-based organization? What does it mean to have a product manager sitting next to you? What does it mean to work with a designer? What does it mean to sort of operate within this team framework? Those are all things that you should understand going in before you decide, hey, I want to go all in and make this my new career or whatever it is. And then, of course, in the final bit of the prep work, we actually talk about code, which in the end of the day, in a lot of ways, is actually kind of the less relevant thing in the scheme of it. Right? In the end of the day, what we're teaching you is how to think, how to learn, how to solve problems. And once you've architected the solution to something, expressing that solution in code is really just kind of the last mile. The hardest part of all development projects is the meat of the decision making, the meat of the tearing it down, building your models, thinking of the edge cases, and solving the problems. So, anyways, that philosophy kind of goes all the way through our curriculum, where even though we've chosen the tools of using Ruby because it's a great language to learn for beginners, we're using the Rails framework because it's a great opinionated pattern for learning MVC, and it's widely used across startups throughout the world. Why we've chosen those tools, but also use those tools to express concepts that are transferable across all sorts of different languages and all sorts of different stacks, and ultimately throughout your career are going to continue to grow and expand. So in the core curriculum, like I said, we start out with the prep work. We'll cover front-end materials, so we'll cover markup and HTML5, CSS3, Bootstrap, and Sass, and all the kinds of things that you kind of just you need to learn. You'll learn it, it'll be fine. We'll move on, and then we'll get into the real good coding stuff. And so we focus on Ruby. We'll talk about object orientation. We'll talk about testing. We'll talk about data structures and algorithms. Basically, the goal of that is to cover that to the level of depth that you can comfortably pass interviews and that you can also design better code. So, I mean, obviously the whole point of an interview is theoretically to determine, are you going to be a good engineer? Sometimes that's more or less aligned with the purpose. A lot of times they'll just ask algorithmic questions more or less to assess your education and more or less to assess your curiosity and whether you've actually gone out of your way to go and investigate, like, like, how do these problems work? Because, the best engineers are curious engineers. For whatever reasons, interviews involve lots of algorithms. We're going to teach algorithms. And the other side of it is, as an engineer, you need to make a lot of engineering trade-offs. You need to understand when is your code going to be slow and inefficient? When is your code going to be much faster, more efficient? And to do that, you also need to have an understanding of how processes work behind the scenes on more of a kind of a granular level, a database level, a data structures level, an algorithmic level. And so we cover that as well. Beyond that, we'll teach you how to scrape data from websites, how to hit APIs, how to build your own websites on Sinatra, how to how to deploy apps, and then finally we'll get into Rails and cover just about everything you need to know about Rails. We spend quite a bit of time on that. Our approach is a little bit different than a lot of other approaches. A lot of generally what you find is that people will try to get you to build a shiny app and then slowly, carefully take you below the surface and, like, can sort of say, this is what these are the methods you need to learn to talk to the database. Don't be too scared of the database. It's over here, and it's not going to bite you. Our approach is the exact opposite. We start with the database. We teach you the fundamentals of databases. We teach you how to model data, how to take apart challenging problems. If someone asks you, how do I build Amazon.com? Your first questions, once you figure out what the heck is going on and what the users are doing and what the sort of the critical paths are, is, okay, great. So I need to build a data model. What are the entities? What are the relationships between them? What are all the moving pieces and bolts underneath the surface? And that's all about data modeling. And only once you've figured that out, that's sort of that problem solving side of things, then you start to work on the tools. And so we teach you SQL. How do you talk to a database? How do you build a database? How do you pull data and make advanced queries from a database? And only then can you actually bubble up and start to use Rails's ORM, which talks to SQL, which is Active Record. And that's when you can start using the more advanced level tools. So it kind of illustrates everything in our approach is very bottom up. It's very start with the details, understand the core of how things work, lift the hood, see the gears turning, and then you can close the hood and start driving the car. And that's really the way that you understand things. We don't want to waste a bunch of time rolling off into the weeds and teaching you things that nobody's using at all these days, but we very much want to make sure that you understand the tools that you are using and to a degree of depth that you can make really good decisions with them, and you're not afraid to go off the rails to do things that aren't quite common or whatever it is, right? And so that's kind of the core of that approach, how we approach teaching Rails and how we approach teaching pretty much everything. The second chunk of the course is all about the front end, and essentially we're going to take you through JavaScript. It's a different language than Ruby. It has a lot of things that cross over, and then a lot of things that are interesting and unique about JavaScript. And what's great is to have both of them in your portfolio, so then you have that point of comparison. So you start to see what are the commonalities between all programming languages, and then what are the things that make each of those unique and special in their own ways. And on the JavaScript side, we'll take you deep into the language. We'll cover all the usual things, closures and prototypal inheritance, and just the whole gamut that you need to understand it. And then we'll take you into really building the front end level apps, the shiny stuff, the single page apps. We'll teach you how to do object orientation with JavaScript, how to kind of build your own frameworks with JavaScript, how to submit AJAX calls to a backend, how to use your backend as an API. And then finally, we'll talk about the AngularJS MV star framework for building production scale single page JavaScript apps. And that basically takes us through the core of our content. And then the rest of the content is all around final projects and then getting hired. And so the final project side is something that we do that's also fairly unique, where regardless of how you take the program, whether it's in the Immersive program or in the Flex program, you have to be collaborative in your final project. So the Flex program, for instance, it's actually optional if you choose to work with other students along the way. We try to make it as easy as possible for you, and a number of students will do that, but it's ultimately not required. The Immersive program is different. You're actually pairing with students every single day. But regardless of which program you're in, the final project has to be collaborative, and ideally with a large group. And the goal of that is that actually you take the final project and you're not just building an app, you're actually going through an entire engineering life cycle. And so what that means is you're starting with the users, you're building mock-ups, you're building user stories, you're prioritizing those stories, you're pointing the stories, and then you're breaking it down into agile sprints so that you can plan out a series of agile sprints. And then every day you're going to meet with your team, you're going to have scrum meetings, you're going to get to the end of your sprints, you'll do demos, you'll do retrospectives, and then finally you'll present to the entire Viking community when you're done with that. And so really the goal of that is not just to give you the #1 shining piece of your portfolio out of all the 80+ projects that we build. It's also to give you that experience working in a real engineering style organization. I mean, the only way to replicate working on a team in an engineering organization is to work on a team in an engineering style organization, and that's exactly what you'll do. So you'll learn all about debugging merge conflicts through lots of people working together, deployment issues, coordination issues, scoping issues, all sorts of things that you can talk about from a base of experience, as opposed to walking out there and saying, oh, I have to be a junior developer because I don't know anything. Please, somebody teach me. I'm going to go out there and like a lamb and just sort of gently and carefully need to step around the minefield that is professional development. I mean, our goal is really to make sure that you walk in there and you can say, look, I don't know a lot, I can learn really fast, but I have a lot of experience as well, and I can reflect that in whatever direction I need to. And then the final aspect of the course is the getting hired side, which is obviously which is why we're here. Not every single student who takes the course is looking to go and become a software engineer directly afterwards. The students of the Immersive program, that is typically the case. Students of the Flex program often have a more nuanced view of motivations, but in the end of the day, ultimately you're going to want to get hired for some sort of role, and our goal is to make sure that everyone who goes through the program has the ability to go out and get a job. And so what that means is throughout the entire course of the program, we're working with you on what you need to do that. And what we talk about is specifically that this is a system. Everything in life is a system. Getting hired is no different. If you don't recognize that this is a system and that you're a part of that system, you're going to get failed by the system. Maybe you're going to try reading some blog posts. They're going to suggest a bunch of things for you to do, which either are aimed at people who have more experience than you, are aimed at people who have computer science degrees, or are just plain bad advice. And you're going to waste your time, and you're not actually going to complete the goal that you're ultimately hoping to do. So a lot of what we do is actually educate about what does it look like? What does the job search look like for someone who's coming from a non-traditional background and who's looking to break into software engineering for the very first time? And that's not a path that a lot of people have experience with, and it's something that we've had a bird's eye view of for years now, and have tons of students who have gone through and come back and talk to us about how that whole process works, and have given us a lot of perspective on what works best and what doesn't. And so you can benefit directly from that, and that starts from the minute you're enrolled, when we talk about the things you should be doing from the very beginning, from day one, cleaning up your online profile, sort of starting to plan ahead, setting goals for what is it that you want to do, who is it that you want to talk to, what types of companies are you aiming for, and how do you start building the relationships that you need to get in the door when the time comes. Not get out the other end of the door and open up monster.com and say, okay, it's time to spam a bunch of resumes and see what shows up. Hiring it doesn't work like that, and that's not how our approach works either. So basically, our goal is, on the one hand, to make you a great developer as much as we can with the resources you give us and that we have at our disposal. And then on the other side, to give you what you need to connect the dots there and market yourself appropriately. And so when you're going out there and hustling hard to get a job, that you have all of the right patterns and all the right tools at your disposal to present yourself as well as possible, so that you're not going to get missed, you're not going to get overlooked. And that takes place over the duration of the course. There are some specific times during the course where we focus on particular parts of that, and it kind of builds up momentum as we go. The more you have in your portfolio, the more certainty you have about what you like and what you don't like, the more we're going to start getting more applicable around, here's how you reach out to people, here's how you get on the radar of companies that you really are interested in, but typically accept candidates who have more CS backgrounds or things like that. And then finally, how do you hack the interview process, the technical screens, the algorithms challenges, the take-home challenges, and ultimately offer negotiation and salary negotiation questions. So it's all part of the whole arc here. And like I said, that actually starts way back at day one, and it kind of takes it's almost like a sidetrack alongside the rest of the course. So that's covered a lot of stuff. We covered the Immersive program format, the Flex program format, and the curriculum format. I think I could probably dive a little bit deeper into specifics of day-to-day in the Immersive program, day-to-day in the Flex program, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. So as far as the day-to-day in the Immersive program, like I said earlier, you'll typically go through that program with a cohort of about 20 other students. And it's an application program. So in order to get into the program, you have to go through an application process, and it's a very selective process that tests your ability to solve logical problems using code. That's one of our number one things. The other is communication. And if you're able to make it through the application process, which usually takes a number of weeks, kind of depending on your level of preparation, we have a whole prep period before the course starts. But then once we hit day one, every single day you're going to be working with other students. You work with a different student every day, pairing directly using screen sharing. And we have a series of daily meetings with your entire course, your entire cohort, and all of the instructional staff. And essentially the entire day, as if you're sitting in a classroom, you're going to be there, you're going to be working, and you're going to have support. Like we're going to be walking around, checking in on you, dropping into your rooms, asking questions. And it's really designed to be as immersive as immersion gets, and one of the most rigorous experiences that you're probably going to have in your entire life. Over the course of the program, we hit the curriculum very hard. Like I said, we complete it in 16 weeks, in addition to some additional prep period ahead of time. So you could probably benchmark that at 18 to 20 weeks of really immersive level pace. And then we get to the end, and then there's a job support period afterwards where we're going to be working with you as you need to connect the dots while you're searching. Typically, students will have a number of students who will finish the course early because they've gotten jobs early as part of the usual process of searching through the end of the course. But then we'll help you during your job search period thereafter. In the Flex program, because it's a go at your own pace, you don't go through with a live group of students. But the advantage of that, of course, is that you get to keep your job. You can go back to school. There's no obligations on what you need to do after the course, and it's totally up to you. And so the Flex program, basically, a typical week would mean, let's say you're working a job, you come home, you do work, you start building for a few hours every evening, and then you might spend one or both weekend days really diving deep into the material, working on projects, collaborating with other students. When you have questions, you ask questions in our chat, and we have live help available to answer those questions via chat. And then we also have office hours throughout the week, so that you can basically just drop into a Hangout and talk like we are now and ask questions about your code, and you have a lot of resources for that. And then if you're working with a mentor, what you'll do is we'll put you in touch with the mentor, we'll coordinate that whole side of things, and essentially every week or several times a week, you'll check in with your mentor, you'll essentially open up your editor, you'll talk about code, they'll ask you what did you do last week, show me your projects. You'll spend the time talking about projects, answering questions, and really talking about how to apply best practices the whole time, and then finish up with, okay, so what are you going to do for next time, and keeping you accountable every single week for the progress that you have. And then at the end of the course, if you're working with a mentor as well, you have access to mock interviews and things like that, where you can change your sessions in for mock interviews from other mentors, and so basically utilize our network of mentors to your advantage so that you can get a wide perspective on mock interviews. And we found that to be mock interviews to be a really, really useful thing for a number of students who are sort of at that phase of the process. They've gotten noticed, but they can't seem to break past the first couple of interviews. And we've really been able to work with students in some really awesome ways to help them break through that. And so that's basically how the Flex program works. And I think that opens us up for questions. If you guys have any, feel free to drop them in the chat or in the Q&A app. I'll stick around for a little bit after this, but I think otherwise we're probably at the end here. So again, if you have questions, the way to use the Q&A app is on my screen, it's on the left bar when you hover over the Hangout, but I think on your screen, it's probably in the top. You might have to open a submenu to get to it. The other option is in the event itself. You're welcome to leave a question directly in there. And otherwise, the other way you can get in touch with us is obviously check out the website is www.vikingcodeschool.com. And you can reach out to us directly at hello@vikingcodeschool.com. And if you want to check out the prep work, like I mentioned, I think that's a great place to start. Gives you a really good sense of how we teach, how we explain things. And it really covers a lot of topics that you won't find in the same way anywhere else. And that's vikingcodeschool.com/prep. So I encourage you guys to check out all of those resources. Feel free to reach out, hang out. We do regular codecasts where we bring the community in to talk. You can sign up for our newsletter where we send out a batch of kind of the hottest links around web development, around music, around a lot of things that you might not think about as being directly relevant to a web developer, but which actually probably enriches your life a little bit here and there. We do that as well, so feel free to sign up there. And otherwise, I think we'll hopefully be able to see you soon. So thanks a lot for watching, and I wish you the very best. Happy coding.